Understanding the technology that powers the money is essential. Knowing the business drivers that inspire how the money is made is crucial. Bridging the gap between the mind of the technologist and the mind of the business is monumental. That is what TBF is all about. Let's start this never-ending conversation. It's time.
Welcome to another episode of the Tech Behind FinTech. I am your host, Nnamdi Osuagwu. Always a pleasure to be here. Today's show is going to be really good. So this whole month, we're dedicating it to SOC2, and we're going to be going through the different nuances, technologies behind it. And today's show, we're going to start with what is SOC2 and why is it a big deal for FinTechs and third-party providers. So exciting month of April, all about SOC2. Different nuances. If you're a fintech and you have to deal with different clients and go through due diligence process, you are quite aware or you heard of SOC 2. If not, we'll break down the history of it. And we're going to go through all the different dynamics of it and so forth. So this month is going to be extremely exciting for SOC 2 compliance and just trying to understand it from a technology perspective. Something that's really important to fintechs and also other service industries, other verticals besides fintechs as well. But we're going to be focusing on fintech. But if you are a vertical, SOC 2 that you've been asked for it, you can learn something from this series as well. So today's episode is going to be the kickoff for the first show of the month regarding SOC 2. So we're going to go over the history of it, and it's cool. Even though I performed, and that's what we're going to learn too, like who can perform a SOC 2 audit. And so forth, and who can help a company get all the things together and help them prepare for it. So there's various roles and so forth. So we're going to cover all of that today. And then next week, we're going to go get into like some technology innovations and automation to helping you get SOC 2 compliance. And then the following week, we're going to actually speak to a real an auditor, CPA. I don't want to give out the bag, but you're going to learn that only a licensed CPA can actually perform a SOC 2 audit. So really interesting stuff. Really excited to be here as always. So let's do some housekeeping first. This episode is sponsored by Strategic Generation, cybersecurity firm offering pen testing and SOC 2 compliance services. Next, we are streaming live from Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, and also we have a feed going from Instagram. So if you see my head turn, I guess that way, that's the feed we're going from Instagram. They don't integrate with our platform that we use, StreamYard. So it has to be through a separate device. Speaking of which, let me do one thing real quick. Okay, done. So, what other housekeeping rules should we discuss? Yes, if you have comments, suggestions, or you want to add to the show or questions, you have a comment section. If you put your comments in on one of your platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch, I'll see it. I'll post it. It'll be part of today's episode, and I'll do my best to answer your question. If not, I'll come back to it next week because the whole month is all about SOC 2. So pretty cool stuff. I think that's it for the housekeeping. So if you're not familiar with our show and this is your first time viewing it, we have our main topic, obviously, which is the SOC 2. What is SOC 2 and why is it such a big deal for fintechs and third-party providers? But we talk about some current news events. We just pick out like 1 or 2 articles. We're going to go through that first, and then we're going to jump into our main topic. All right, so the first one that came out, you might have seen this. So look, over the course, this is probably going to be its own episode. It's in its entirety, but we've been, I think the world has just been, ChatGPT, right? It's like Google on steroids. Everyone's talking about it. It's an AI platform that uses a model that allows you to ask certain questions. It has, I think it dates from 2021 and before, I think. So it's not my understanding current. I know when it during beta. I don't know if they updated the model, but they kind of did in a sense. Well, you updated it. We'll get to that. So understand, right? When you pose certain questions to Chat GPT and then it comes back and gives you an answer, it's using your input to actually train this model. So what does that mean? That means that, if you ask it a personal question, a business question, that data stays with the parent company, OpenAI, and it's going to reuse it. It may use your data now to answer someone else's future question. So essentially, some engineers at Samsung in their semiconductor division they asked. Well, Samsung actually allowed them, so they got permission, and they were using Chat GPT to check source code. So unfortunately, by doing that action, trade secrets got out because now you're taking your source code, which is confidential, you're putting it on Chat GPT, it's saving the data to train future models, and now their source code is out. So look, PSA, Chat GPT is a great tool. I use it, but don't put trade secrets or confidential data in Chat GPT to help you out with your job or your company or whatever, because that data, if it's confidential, is no longer confidential. So that's a quick take on that, which might be its own episode, but we'll move on. Next, our article that came out this week: 120 arrested as cybercrime website Genesis Market was seized by the FBI. So basically, Genesis Market's a cybercrime store that sold access to passwords and other data stolen from millions of computers infected with malicious software and malware. So it was seized by the FBI today. The domain seizures coincided with more than 100 arrests in the United States and abroad, targeting those who allegedly operated the service, as well as suppliers who continuously fed Genesis Market with freshly stolen data. So that's a good thing, right? They were active since 2018. Their slogan was, "Our store sells bots with logs, cookies, and their real fingerprints." Customers can search for infected systems with a variety of options, including by the internet address or by specific domain names associated with stolen credentials. So the seizure notice includes the seals of law enforcement entities from several countries, including Australia, Canada, Denmark, Germany, the Netherlands, Spain, Sweden, and the United Kingdom. So this is a global law enforcement event. So basically, when Genesis customers purchase a bot, they're purchasing the ability to have all of the victims' authentication cookies loaded into their browser so that online accounts belonging to the victim can be accessed without the need of a password, and in some cases, without multi-factor authentication. So very interesting, right? It makes you not want to save things in your cookies. I know it makes life easier. You click on these browsers, then it's like, oh, I don't have to enter my password to go into my bank account anymore. I could just, it's all saved, or go into, Amazon and so forth. Enter your passwords, use the multi-factor authentication. Try to, I wouldn't save that when accessing sensitive information, even from your home computer, especially a work computer. So that's FYI. Now it is time to get into SOC2. This is the exciting part. All right, so let's kind of start off with the history of SOC2, and then let's get into the details around it. So it's basically a widely recognized auditing standard developed by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, AICPA, to evaluate controls that service organizations implement to protect privacy, security, availability, confidentiality of their customers' data. So prior to SOC2, right, its predecessor was SAS 70, Statement of Auditing Standards number 70. It was an auditing standard that was commonly used by service organizations to demonstrate their control over financial reporting. So it was just financial reporting at that time, so prior to 2010. but it was not specifically designed to address the growing concerns around security and privacy for customer data in the era of cloud computing, where service providers increasingly rely on third-party vendors to manage critical business. And one thing I want to add in, right? There was a stat, and it said that I don't want to misquote the stat. Let me see if I can find it because I don't like to misquote stats I don't like to do that. But it's a very interesting one. I mentioned it before in the show, but I know it's a percentage. I don't think I have it openly available, so I have to rely on memory. But somewhere between 59% of breaches happen from third-party vendors. Hold up, let me just get that stat. 59%. Hold up, let me find that stat. I'm gonna keep it real dynamic right now. We're gonna go get this in real time of breaches due to third party third parties. Let's see. Let me get that stat to make sure I say it correctly. Okay. Well, okay, cool. It was another number 59%. This purpose to third parties in the last 12 months. That's important to note as we start talking more about SOC 2 and the relevance, right? So it goes to show you are only as strong as your weakest link. So think about that for a second, right? We have you do everything in your power as a company, right, to secure yourself. Let's say that you implemented some industry standard frameworks, you have a pretty hardened environment, and you're living a very secure life. Now you integrate when you buy a service, a SaaS-based service, right? Software as a service, meaning there's some cloud service from a third-party vendor. They're not as hardened as you, right? Their controls are not sufficient. You are only as strong as your third-party vendor. So from the other side looking in, working around different fintechs and things of that nature, and watching them when they want to sell to bigger organizations, especially B2B, going through the due diligence process. This is why, right? Whether you're trying to integrate or work with a bank or work with various PE firms, it's just the a bigger organization you're trying to sell to from a B2B standpoint. They're going to want to go through an extensive due diligence process because they know that it's a percentage wise. A lot of the breaches come from third parties that are maybe not as sophisticated as them. So hence the due diligence. And in an easy way for them to go through the due diligence, ask one question: are you SOC 2 compliant? There's different types. We're going to go over that, but usually they want to see, are you SOC 2 type 2? If you're type 1, what are your plans to get type 2? So that's kind of the reason behind it. But back to the history. So prior to SOC 2, it was SAS 70. And only the financial reporting, it showed that wasn't sufficient. They needed more. It was concerns around security and privacy. So introduce SOC 2. What are we with time? All right. So in 2011, the AICPA replaced SAS 70 with SOC. So for the financial side, they still had SOC 1. That's not what we're going to talk about today. That deals around financial reporting. To controls of financial reporting, but the SOC 2 and 3 reports focus on controls related to security, availability, processing, integrity, confidentiality, privacy of customer data. We're going to really, our focus is not the SOC 2, not necessarily SOC 3. I'm not looking, and matter of fact, I could come with more info on SOC 3. I'm more familiar with SOC 2. That's the industry. That's what a lot of companies are asking for, is your SOC 2 type 2. So so back to the story time, right? So the AICPA developed SOC 2 They built upon the same principles as the framework in SAS 70, but focused specifically on security, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, and privacy of customer data. Those controls are known as the 5 trust service categories, based on criteria called the trust service principles. Right. At any time, let's oh wow, we have Alex is joining. What's up, Alex? My on Instagram, my yoga instructor just joined. Yes, outside of SOC2, I do take yoga and do a couple of other cool activities. So we have different people watching. So let's continue. All right. So SOC 2. So after it's become so SOC 2 has become widely adopted standard in the technology industry, especially among, as we talked about, SaaS-based providers, FinTechs, and data centers. So all the service providers in that industry, the auxiliary services, the actual FinTechs, the services that supply it, and so forth. It provides a comprehensive framework for demonstrating a service provider's commitment to data security and privacy. It gives customers the assurance that they need that their data is being handled in a secure and compliant manner. Interesting to note, we touched upon this earlier in the show, only licensed CPA firms can issue a SOC 2 audit. So what does that even mean, right? So, it has to be done, the actual audit, and because like at the end of the day, the artifact that's produced is a SOC 2 report. Well, type 1 or type 2 report, and only a licensed CPA can produce that. Now, obviously, if you watch my show, you know my background. I'm not a CPA. I'm on the cybersecurity side, a technologist. Roles like me, whether you're looking at head of security, CISO roles, what I do, you can help prepare and set up the necessary things to get a company all the preparation documents or or implement the technology that can help automate the system so we can get the CPA exactly what they need. So it's that type of partnership and combination. And in dedication to our SOC 2 month, we're going to actually have a licensed CPA who performs these audits. I think that's going to be in week 3. So it's going to be 2 weeks from now. Talk about that aspect of delivering an audit and the combination of so forth. So a couple of things, right? So that people always ask. SOC 2 it stands for System and Organization Controls 2, right? It's not a regulatory requirement imposed by the government, a government agency, right? So you have other things. If you start looking at the EU, you have GDPR, right? You have other slew of different things. Like what is it called? The California Security, the CCPA in California. I mean, point being, right? There are certain regulatory requirements that are issued from a government perspective. This one is not. But with that said, although it's not mandated, it's become widely accepted standard for demonstrating an organization's commitment to protecting client data and maintaining information security. So even though it's not necessarily a government requirement, from a B2B standpoint, dealing with other firms, they're going to want to see that you're SOC 2 compliant, right? Because guess what? It now becomes a competitive advantage. So two firms offering the same service. I'm a bank, or or you're a service provider, a SaaS-based solution. I need the service. One company, price is negligible. Everything is kind of similar, different nuances, but one company has a SOC 2 type 2. Now you're dealing with enterprise level organizations, right? They have to go through a due diligence department. They're legal, so it's like, all right, I'm going to go with the company that has that. So so security in this sense has now become a competitive advantage. Now, full disclosure, right? Does that mean that you're 100% secure just because you have SOC 2 compliant? Absolutely not. And that's a whole other conversation. Depending on time, we'll get into it. But it does mean, right, that the low-hanging fruit, and from a process perspective, you are taking the necessary steps to secure your data. Is the analogy in security that I like to use is this, right? You're looking at two homes, and and you're a hacker or the nefarious individual looking, or you're a threat actor. They want to do the least amount of work. So are you gonna try to break into the home that has locks on it, it has the ADT system or some type of security system? Or if you see, wow, this person left their door open, and I see, you know, jewelry in their kitchen through the window, I can just walk in and take it. You're going to go for the easier option. So a lot of these industry frameworks, that's what it helps with, but there's other layers. I mean, and it's a whole concept of security. We say security in depth. That means different layers of securing your organization. All right, so okay, kind of deviated from the slide, but if you're on a podcast, you're not seeing a slide, but other people who are viewing this are seeing a slide. So SOC 2 compliance can provide several benefits to organizations, such as increased customer trust, improved risk management, reduced liability, especially for organizations that handle sensitive data. That's important to know. Let me see if there's any comments. Okay, no comments so far. Okay, so, and let me see how good we are with time. We're making good with time. All right, so when you're looking at SOC 2, there's going to be something called a SOC 2 Type 1 and Type 2. A lot of, and this is in talking to different leaders, CEOs, and things of that nature, or especially for FinTechs, it's like, okay, what's the difference? What does that even mean? So there are two different types of SOC 2 reports that you can get, a Type 1 and Type 2. Type 2 is the gold standard, right? That's the one you want to shoot for. Type 1 is probably not, like, let's say silver, second place, not first. But so type 1 is the snapshot, point in time. So it shows that on this particular date, right? Well, what's today's date? Today is I think what's today's date? April. I should know the date, right? Today's my show. Okay. Well, let's just say it's April. I think, yeah, I think it's April. It was April 7th. My bad. A little back in time. All right. So let's say today's April 7th. So a type 1 is on April 7th. CPA confirmed that you are meeting the SOC 2 standards on this particular day, right? So it's a point in time snapshot. They take a snapshot of a historical date, right? Let's say, well, if we were looking at it today, it would be a historical date. So it would be like April 1st or April 2nd, some day back in the past. You met all the requirements, right? That's a type 1, point in time snapshot. Type 2, it's different. It shows that over the course of a period of months, time, it could be a quarter, 3 months, 6 months, a year, you have been SOC 2 compliant, and you have been meeting all the standards for this continuous time on an ongoing basis, right? They've been monitoring you and watching you. I mean, in actuality, the monitoring is getting all of those different system logs and looking at random time just to see if you're adhering. Now, do they go through each one? No. We'll talk more about that with the CPA. But but is there technology in place, right? Because I remember when these types of things were done in Excel, which is not the case anymore, at least with the organizations that I work with. You know, it's more automated, and we can kind of see it in real time using and application programming interface, meaning APIs and things that connected to the systems that you leverage, whether you're cloud providers, human resource information, technology systems, and so forth. But now that's the type 2 is more continuous. Okay, how have you been continuously doing it? So obviously that seems a lot harder than a point in time. So that one is the gold standard. But let's say that, I mean, how I advise organizations that I work with, I say that, listen, your goal is to get to SOC 2 Type 2, but you want to also show, like I said, it becomes a business advantage to have some report. So on the journey there, right, let's just knock out the Type 1 first, right? So you can have something in place as you're talking to customers and different clients. You at least can show them we We completed our SOC 2 Type 1, and we are on path to get the SOC 2 Type 2. So in those months of waiting for SOC 2 Type 2, because it does take some time, right? Because you have to monitor it over time, you can at least present something, and this can help you with the conversation for sales and so forth. So that's something that I talk with a lot to organizations that I work with. All right, so let's go over the 5 trust service criteria. So part of SOC 2, the AICPA, they have 5 trust service criteria. Security. So that refers to the organization's ability to demonstrate that all critical systems are protected against unauthorized systems and other risks that could impact your ability to provide the service promised to your customers. Availability. That refers to the company's ability to demonstrate that your systems are available and your organization is able to operate at all times. Confidentiality. That refers to the company's ability to demonstrate that the data that is classified as confidential is always protected. Privacy. That refers to the company's ability to demonstrate that your customers' personal information is always protected. Processing integrity. That refers to the company's ability to demonstrate that the system processes is reliable and accurate. So let's kind of go over at what point some of these will be needed. So it's important to note, right? These are 5 service criteria. Will each one be needed? No. Those are outside of security. The rest are optional. So security is standard. You need the security trust criteria as part of your SOC 2 Type 2. Now, I've been in situations, although they're optional, right? Will customers still ask? And some, due diligence is due diligence. They can ask you anything they want. They might say, okay, why don't you have confidentiality, even though it is optional, right? So you could, why don't you have privacy, right? If I'm entrusting you with my data, I want to ensure that these things are in place. So that's something that is a conversational topic. We have to kind of see, okay, level of time and complexity to get these things as ready from organization. So like for availability, that's a trust criteria. But do you have some sort of SLA, right? A service level agreement is what SLA stands for. Do you test your disaster recovery and business continuity annually, right? Do you process and place a monitor on your systems continuously? So that's availability. Those are questions that you might want to think through, right? If you want to add that trust criteria. Not that if you want to add it, but if you could actually pass the audit. For confidentiality, right? Are you storing sensitive information? Are your customers asking you to delete data that's no longer needed? You have situations like that. You're taking in, a lot of FinTechs partner with bigger financial institutions, right? So they're entrusting you with their data. Privacy, some questions you may want to think through. Are you storing customer data? Is that data personal identifiable and so forth? Processing integrity, that's an interesting one because, the different organizations that may use that, like it's what you're producing in your system. Do customers rely on it to be accurate? That's a customer's complete operational task on your system. So, you can think through different scenarios like that fit your organization. That's important to note. Wow, we are at our 30 mark. And a couple of things I want to go over real quick before we part is what are the different elements of a SOC 2 type report? So whether you get like the type 2 or type 1, you're gonna get a report. That's the actual tangible artifact that you're gonna get after you complete your assessment. It's gonna be prepared by the CPA and so forth. I mean, like it's we're at Z right now, right? But between A to Z, there's various steps that need to be done and preparation steps to get the CPA what they want. Because guess what? You pay for an audit and you don't pass. That doesn't mean that the payment, the check is not cashed. That just means you didn't pass. So you want to put yourself in a situation, or your organization in a situation, that you're going to most effectively pass that audit. But the deliverable, right, after everything is said and done, and as be part of your due diligence process that your customers will ask for, is the SOC2 report. So I just want to go over a high level overview of the different sections of that report. You're going to have your introduction. So it's an overview of your organization. Management's assertion includes a statement from your management asserting that the controls were suitably designed and operated effectively to meet the trust service criteria. The independent auditor's report, right? So it's going to include the opinion of the auditor, description of systems. This is where a lot of people get jammed up. It's just really kind of describing all of your systems capabilities, what it's doing, your architecture, and so forth. So you have to kind of list that in the report. You're going to provide that to the auditor, actually. They're going to, for them to put it in the report. Your control environment, your overall control, including governance, structure, risk management process, internal. Your risk assessment describes the organization's process for identifying, assessing, and managing risk to its systems. Your control activities describes the controls in place to mitigate the risk identified in risk assessment. Your monitoring activities. So how are you monitoring those controls on a continuous basis? Once again, we're going to get into the technology to help enforce these things. Sweet. Well, you're going to have your trust service criteria. Once again, we talked about that. Which trust service criteria are you putting in this report? The security, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, and privacy. They have other information that includes additional information required by the auditor, such as a list of third-party service providers. So, who are you? What's your? So think about that, right? Not only now are you being vetted, who are you connected to that you get services from, and do they have their SOC2 report? So it goes down the line throughout the whole supply chain. Summary of test results, and the appendix section. That's it. I mean, so the goal of today's show is really just to give an overview of the history of SOC2, and this is part of the intro part of the month. Like I said, this whole month is dedicated to SOC2 and so forth. So today's goal was to go over SOC2 and the history of it, the 5 trust service criteria, some insights for FinTechs and third-party providers, and an overview of the report. Next week, we're going to get into the technology behind enforcing it and implementing it to make life easier. Like I said, I can take it way back to the times where doing these things on Excel and other tools that were more static based, right? And now we have tools that integrate using APIs and integrate with the cloud providers that you use, your source code repository, your human resources system, because you want to see your onboarding and different things of that nature. Pull all that information in, map it to different SOC2 questions, and then from a continuous monitoring standpoint, you can see all that. So we're going to get into the technology automation aspect next week. As always, thank you very much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. And thanks for supporting the show. Thanks for watching. Whether you're watching it today live, whether you're going to see this episode next week, next month, or next year, I appreciate your viewership. It's been a few years since we've been at this, and we've been growing our base slowly, but steadily. So I definitely appreciate the consistency of those that show up on a weekly basis to watch me talk about various technology topics around just different things. Right? Our show is the Tech Behind FinTech. That's the goal, and that's what we talk about. So on that note, we will be back next week, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, our official time every week, Friday, 12 p.m. So tune in. You can visit us at the Tech Behind FinTech I'd like to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, the sponsor of our show, Strategic Generation. Strategic Generation is a firm that offers cybersecurity, SOC2 compliance, and pen testing services. You can visit them at strategicgeneration.com. And that concludes our show today. All those who tuned in from Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, and also to all my Instagram people who are watching live, thank you very much for the support. I am waving to you, virtual wave. Yeah. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you once again for watching the show. You have a spectacular weekend. We are out.
Understanding the technology that powers the money is essential. Knowing the business drivers that inspire how the money is made is crucial. Bridging the gap between the mind of the technologist and the mind of the business is monumental. That is what TBF is all about. Let's start this never-ending conversation. It's time.